I'm Stuart Fischman. This is the Web Yeshiva again. Tonight we're going to talk about Rachtzah, washing our hands. And I certainly hope that the Houthis who are listening in Yemen shouldn't shoot any missiles at us while we're giving the shir tonight, because last night they completely threw me off my rhythm. Rachtzah of the Seder really is the same Rachtzah that we do all year long. And there's nothing different about it. But I like to find things that are like opposites. But our halacha these days evolved from the Gemara through the Gaonim until you get to the Shulchan Aruch, until we see people have special Netilat Yadayim cups. But I want to talk about the bracha. Like, the first thing is, like, it's odd. And it's something that's really worth thinking about. What bracha do we say when we do this mitzvah d'Rabbanan of washing our hands? The text of the bracha is al netilat yadayim. And that's like an interesting word. Litol in Hebrew means to take, right? If I need permission, litol reshut, I need to take. Now, what other mitzvah gets the verb netilah? On Sukkot, what do we say? Al netilat lulav. And what do I do with a lulav? I take it, I move it around. When I wash my hands, I'm not really taking my hands anywhere. I'm certainly not moving them around because they'll just splash and make a mess. So why is this bracha al netilat yadayim? Okay, it's like saying that to think, but it is. That is the bracha. Now, what's interesting, and like I said, I like things that are like show like a different way of looking at things, is Rav Amram Gaon. Our Seder, the Seder that we have, the first Seder is the Seder of Rav Amram Gaon. He was a Gaon in Babel in the mid-9th century. And he put together all the prayers in a book that's called Seder of Amram Gaon. And there's an introduction to it. Okay? He wrote an introduction. And I'll read it to you because it's interesting historically. Amram Bar Shashna, Reish Retifta de Mata Machazia. There was a yeshiva in Babel, there was Pumpatita, there was Sur, and there was Mata Machazia. Amram Bar Sasna, the head of the yeshiva in Mata Machazia. Mata just means city. I guess I should just say Machazia. That's like, in the city of New York. Mata just means city in Aramaic. The Rosh Yeshiva in Machazia. Rabbana Yitzchak Braid Rabbana Shimon Chaviv Yakir Nechman Yeshiva Kula. To my dear, respected colleague, the Rav Shimon. Okay? And he says to all of you, and we ask about you, how are you doing? And Shagalov ne Rabbani Yitzchak Rabbani Yitzchak, you sent us a donation of 20 gold coins. Thank you for your donation. And what did you ask me for? Seder tefilot u'brachot kol shana shesha'alta. It's not, Rav Shimon apparently lived in North Africa, and there was a migration. The center of Jewish learning was Bavel. There was a yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael that rose and fell with the Byzantines, and the Jewish communities in North Africa, all the way up to Tunisia, were growing, and they were kept in contact with yeshiva in Bavel, and they would ask for things like they would send their questions to Bavel, and they asked for this: Seder tefilot brachot shekol shana shesha'alta. You want to know what a Seder. We need a fixed Seder. Like, what are we saying? Like, you're authoritative. I mean, imagine as they moved from Bavel westward, they took their prayers with them. But I imagine that there are probably differences. Like, who remembered? Do you remember what we used to say? Well, what we used to say? Like, what are we supposed to say? So they sent the letter back to Bavel. Send us a text. Okay, send us a text. So Rav Amram says, of course, I'm happy to oblige. And the way the language he uses is interesting. Shoharu min hashamayim. The prayers that we have are inspired by Hashem. They believe this is Torah Shabbal Peh. This is the yeshiva in Bavel. It's when the yeshiva in Bavel goes all the way back to the running of the Gemara, and all the way back. I mean, Ezra took many of the Jews to Eretz Yisrael, but a large number of Jews stayed in Bavel. So this goes back, way back, okay? And I'm going to tell you what the brachot are, what the Siddur is. And one of the things that he sends, of course, is what to do on Pesach. On Pesach, look what he says. I like interest. It's like it's different. Okay? So, what do you do on the Seder? Notlin Yadayim. Okay, we do Netilat Yadayim. Okay, you wash your hands, and they asked him about this, and they said to him, Pesach Mervech Gimel Pamim. We say, they wrote to him, we're saying Al Tat Yadayim 3 times on Pesach. And he says, this, I don't know what you mean. But Pesach shekatavta, what you wrote to me about Pesach, I'm not really clear what you're getting at. But Pesach shalosh pamim, why do you mean at the Seder Pesach you're saying on the Tilat Yadayim 3 times? That's why they wrote to. That's why they write to Rabbi Dr. They write to him, this is what we're doing, and he says, I don't know why you're doing that. Who told you to do this? And what's the source? I don't know where any Mishnah Masechet Psachim says to say Al Tat Yadayim 3 times. It's not in the Talmud. Who told you anything about this? It's ignorance. Divrei Borutein. Okay, that's pure ignorance. Okay, now we don't say Al Tat Yadayim before we eat the vegetables beginning of the Seder. If I'm going did. That's you'll learn about karpas in another class. So 2 I can understand. 1 for karpas, 1 for the matzah. Well, shlishit hechan makoma. What's this third on the Tilat Yadayim? Im achar mazon. Now, if you're talking about mayim achronim at the end of the meal, well, the Gemara already says mayim achronim chovein nantunim bracha. We don't make a bracha on mayim achronim. What you're doing 3 times is just wrong. Okay? Twice. 2 on Tilat Yadayim. Okay? Now, he makes another point. And that goes back to, I said, why are we saying on the Tilat Yadayim, which is like a really strange verb? Okay? Like, why do we notel our Yadayim? Like, where are we taking them to? So he has a suspicion of Amram Gal. Shema. Okay, Shema, Dain Yeshte B'yetchem L'ota Ta'ut Shepeshu Abanim Shebamchem Lifnei Mar Rav Sar Shalom Gaon. Rav Amram Gaon's predecessor was Rav Sar Shalom Gaon. And your people sent a letter to my predecessor about Netilat Yadayim. And what did they write? And this is like really interesting. Shalom Avachim B'Pesach Al Netilat Yadayim Al Rachtzah Yadayim, Al Shtifat Yadayim. We say all the time, Al Netilat Yadayim. There's one bracha when we wash our hands before a meal, Al Netilat Yadayim. That's it. We get up in the morning, we wash our hands, Al Netilat Yadayim. These people, I think they're in North Africa. they wrote a letter to Rav Sarshlam on Pesach. We have three different, not only do we wash our hands 3 times with a bracha, we have 3 different brachot. Al Natilat Yadayim, Al Rachtzah Yadayim, Al Shtifat Yadayim. Okay. And Rav Sarshlam said, Tziva v'katvu lachem shatut gedola huzu. And Rav Sarshlam going, what you know, this is like a huge mistake. Wise people who know Torah like you are making a mistake like this? Why would you make a different bracha on Pesach from the rest of the year when you're doing the Natilat Yadayim? Forget about the 3 times. I don't know where that comes from. But this idea of different brachot for each time you wash your hands, and only on Pesach, where did this come from? But what's Hashem going on? Whoever said anything, a bracha of Rachtzah and Shtifa, you think maybe in Beit HaMikdash they said that bracha? The Kohanim would wash their hands at the Kior, whenever they entered the Beit HaMikdash. Did they make a bracha al Rachtzah Yadayim in Beit HaMikdash? Chalila. Lo even in Beit HaMikdash. Rav Sashim said the Kohanim made a bracha on the Natilat Yadayim. When they had a mitzvah, right? There's a mitzvah. That's the mitzvah in the Torah to wash your hands. It's for Kohanim. They washed their hands and their feet when they entered the Beit HaMikdash. They said on the Natilat Yadayim. And now the pasuk does say, "Shnema Rachatzuah." Now it's true. The word to wash in biblical Hebrew is Rachtzah. But when the bracha was composed by Anshe Knesset Hagedolah, they used the verb nitilah. And Onkelos, and you learn that, you can look in Targum Onkelos, the verb of rachatz and Onkelos is shataf, like in Hebrew, shin tet pei. But the word that's used for washing for Beit HaMikdash is bikatshum. It's not merely washing. I mean, right now, it's almost Pesach here, and you'll see lots of signs up for people washing your car for Pesach, shtifat rechavim. So lishtaf has really no sacred implication or connotation. And Onkelos is very careful about that. Bikatshum. So I don't know why you are all of a sudden going to say the Rechitzat Yadayim or Shtifat Yadayim. He just says this makes no sense at all. But and Rav Shalom Gaon wrote to these people, get the word out, stop saying these brachot. Just stop saying them. They're wrong, they're incorrect. There's no basis for them in the halachic literature. Forget it. Just forget it. So we are left with this mysterious verb on the Tilat Yadayim. So where did it come from? Like, why? So another sefer that's important, that's of Amram Gaon, he doesn't say why it's Natilat Yadayim. There's another sefer that's important. I just gotta dial it up. It's called Kada Kemach. Kada Kemach. There was Rabbeinu Bachai in Spain. He was a Talmud of the Rajba, and he's most well known, I think, for his Parish to the Torah, which is published. There was a Rav Chevelle Zatzal in New York who did a lot. He found manuscripts. He's most famous, I think, for his edition of the Ramban's Parish to the Torah. He also did a lot for Rabbeinu Bachai. Basically, he salvaged him. And Rabbeinu Bachai wrote a Parish to the Torah. He also wrote books on like halacha and what we call these days hashkafa. What's the meaning of the mitzvot? And he had an encyclopedia of mitzvot with their meaning called Kad HaKemach. And he writes about brachot. And this is what he has, and he emphasized, he makes a very important point. He says, most people don't pay attention to their brachot. So he's going to start with the first bracha we say in the morning, which is Netilat Yadayim. And it's an interesting point. Rov bnei Adam einam mitbonenim, einam samim olev ha'inyan hazeh. Most people are not paying attention to their brachot, which are really important ideas in the brachot. Ve'elu darchei kedusha v'shor zachut ha'machshava kem ha'mitzvot al tchunatam l'chriz l'chavein brachot al mod yisod hatam. We have to pay attention to the words of these brachot. This is how we acquire kedusha and purity of thought to fulfill the mitzvah al tchunatam, to fulfill the mitzvah correctly. It's not just the mechanics of the mitzvah. There's a meaning to the mitzvah. And as he puts it, we should think about the brachot, and we should really see what there's a message in every brachot. Like what's it trying to get across to me as I do this mitzvah? Okay, that's the first bracha, Netilat Yadayim. And we say this every day we eat bread, and I don't really pay much attention to the words. And Rabbeinu Bachai is saying, no, you should pay attention to these words because they're instructive. Tzarich shi'orid amayim al yadav, lo yishashech yadav amayim. First of all, how to do the mitzvah? We have sinks with running water. It's like such a bracha to have running water. I've been to countries where they don't have running water. Running water is just such a bracha. So in the days of Rabbeinu Bachai, they didn't have running water in the house. You had a barrel of water. I guess they said you either went out to the local well, you brought the water into the house. You don't stick your hands into the barrel of water and flip them around, okay? You have to pour the water over your hands. And he says, Chazal say this, if you're nearby a flowing river and you don't have a cup with you, don't just stick your hands in the river. Gather up water in one hand and pour it onto the other hand. Okay, but Tama Davar. Why is this? It says about the kior, and Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands from it. The kior was a big basin with faucets, right? We've all seen diagrams and pictures of what things looked like in the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash. It was a big round vessel with faucets. And it says they should wash their hands from it. It doesn't say they should wash their hands in it. They should wash their hands mimenu from it. In other words, water had to flow out of the kior onto the hands and feet of the Kohanim. The Kohen was not supposed to just stick his hands. They could have made just an open basin. They could put their hands into it. No, that's not the way the kior was. No, they had to pour water from the kior onto their hands. And about Netilat Yadayim, whoever is not careful about Netilat Yadayim, very bad. Not coming to Olam. Why? First of all, if you don't know Netilat Yadayim, you're just making a mockery out of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Okay? Second of all, besides the fact that you're just ignoring a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, you're just being lazy. I mean, let's say we have to wait between meat and milk. If I eat a hamburger and I really want some chocolate milk, I can say I had a tremendous yearning and I couldn't overcome it. But why not wash your hands? Why not wash your hands? It's just laziness. It's like a spiteful belittling of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. And just to ignore a mitzvah out of laziness, that's much worse than eating treif. I could walk past. I always used to tell my kids, I grew up in New York. I didn't grow up in the Jewish neighborhood. And when I came home from school, I got off the bus. There was a treif pizza shop. And there weren't any kosher pizza shops when I was a kid anyway. There was a pizza shop which was delicious. The smells from that pizza shop were delicious. And down the block, I still remember this, there was a Chinese restaurant called the House of Chang. Also delicious. Everything in these treif restaurants smelled delicious, whether it's the Chinese food or the pizza. So if get an overpowering yearning for pizza or Chinese food, it's understandable. Why not do Natilat Yadayim? If you're not doing Natilat Yadayim, it means you don't want to. You don't want to. I don't want to do this mitzvah. Okay, and that's very, very bad. And what about this verb, Natilah? So he writes something else. Okay. I just want to find it. So I have to go to the other writing of Rabbeinu Bachai, and that's in the same volume of Chevelle, another collection called Shulchan Shel Arba, which is his halacha of the Seudah. Where's my Shulchan Shel Arba? Here we are. This has to load. Okay. Because Hashem, because Shulchan Shmon, Netilat Yadayim, there are brachot that we eat at the table. Netilat Yadayim, Hamotzi, that's 2. Brachot Birkat Hamazon, that gives you 6. They had wine with their meals. That gets your own bracha. So 8 brachot for every meal, and he makes this point. Bracha Aleph on Netilat Yadayim. Okay, the bracha that Rav Amram gone, Rav Sarshalom gone, so that's the bracha. No al Rachtzah, no al Shtifa, Natila. Why? Natilat Yadayim means raising up the hands. What are we raising up? You have to raise your hands. So now Rabbeinu Bachai was very Kabbalistic. Okay? I really can't get into the Kabbalah of it. I don't understand the Kabbalah. But there's Kabbalah something called, there are 10 sfirot. There are 10 fingers on the hand, right? We raise up our hands. Hashem's beneficence will flow down upon us. I raise up my hands to you because I love your mitzvot. So, Natilat Yadayim, this verb Natilah means raising up. And there are people, if they wash their hands, they dry them, they sew, they say the pasuk Suyidechem Kodesh. The raising up of the hands has tremendous Kabbalistic significance. And Rabbeinu Bachai says that's why the bracha is called Al Natilat Yadayim. Okay, and they have this. My wife says her father used to say this pasuk, Suyidechem Kodesh V'Achor Hashem. They would say this bracha after Natilat Yadayim. And he says there are a lot of other gematrias for 10. All this, Natilat Yadayim, thinking about these things, shows why? To show that we don't eat Elikayam Gufa. I mean, we don't, like someone said, I don't live to eat. I eat to live. That's a phrase that I picked up once in America. Well, we're not just thinking about filling our bellies when we eat. We eat, so we should be hopefully become worthy of serving Hashem. Again, there's this Kabbalistic idea of 10, b'tocha eser, which I really don't want to get into. You can find Rabbeinu Bachai, and you can read the footnotes of Rav Chevelle. And he goes on and on about this 10. Okay. You mentioned this earlier. The person who doesn't do Netilat Yadayim is gone. So again, if you ignore Netilat Yadayim, that means you're not paying attention to the ideas of Netilat Yadayim, which imply our relationship with Hashem. Hashem should send us a bracha. If you're not interested in that, then it's all over. And he goes on about this. Okay, so that's Netilat Yadayim. Why are we saying Netilat Yadayim? Netilat does mean to raise up, and we raise up our hands, and Kabbalistically it represents Hashem should send us a bracha. Okay, that's the first thing I want to talk about. Any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. So we can go on. Find another idea. All right. There are a lot of ideas. All right. How do we do Netilat Yadayim? Okay. Also, okay. How do we do Netilat Yadayim? The first thing to know, okay, that we all know that it's good to review. Of course, we have to review for Rachtzah. Now, where are you? I know I opened you up. The big question, the big halacha in the Netilat Yadayim is Rachtzah. We pour the water on. We'll get to that later. But the technical thing that people always say, but the person, they come home, it's Leil Seder. This happened to my son. Okay, my son, when he was like 10, he had rollerblades. And Erev Pesach, I said, please don't ride your rollerblades. It's Erev Pesach. But he did go out there on his rollerblades. He did fall down. He didn't break his arm. I had to take him to Kupat Chli Muchedet and Rehov Turim to get a cast put on his arm, Erev Pesach, and completely threw the schedule off. How do you do Netilat Yadayim with a cast on your hand, or a Band-Aid, or a bandage, or something else? That's the halacha of Rachtzah, because your hands should be, because Netilat Yadayim for the hand is like any other act of Tara, like going to the mikvah, and if there's a barrier between the body and the water, that could be very problematic. And my wife told me a story. I don't know if there's any truth to this story, but she told it to me, so I'm inclined to say it must be true. That there was a woman. You don't think it's true? She read it on the internet. It must be true. She read it on an internet site. It must be true. The internet only tells the truth. There was a woman who was a Gioret, and she lives with a Jewish family and sees how they do things. And she noticed that the wife would take off a ring before she did Netilat Yadayim. This Gioret didn't own any rings, but she thought that that's something that Jews have to do. So she went out and she bought a ring, and this woman, so I guess she didn't want to lose her wedding ring when she didn't let you down, so she kept it between her teeth. Took off her finger and put it in her mouth. Then she didn't let you die. And then that's what the Gioret said. Jews must be doing this. She buys a ring and she does let you die. She puts it in her teeth, and she met someone else and said, why are you putting the ring in your teeth? They said, well, that's what Jews do. And one said, no, Jews don't do that. Well, I spent a couple of years by this family, and that's what the woman was doing. So then the other person explained to her, no, there's no mitzvah to buy a ring and put between your teeth and then let you die. So that's a story that my wife told me. She asked me to repeat it to you because she finds it amusing. So seriously, what are we doing about a Rachtzah? And if you have a Band-Aid on your hand, say, hope you don't. But what's to be done? So you need to see the Mishnah Berurah, and then we'll see the Piskei Tshuva who does clarify some things. Mishyesh lo maka biyado, for a tia, a person who has a injury on his hand, and a bandage is on it. She told Shar Hayad, all right, if you have you have a bandage on your hand, then wash the rest of your hand. You don't have to get the bandage wet. It's not a chatzitza. But then you have to be careful. The water Tilat Yadayim is meant to purify the hand. That's why you wash our hands twice, each hand twice. The first water achieves the purity. That water is now impure. So then we have to wash our hands a second time to get the impure water off. So let's say the first pouring of water gets onto the bandage. Now the bandage absorbed all the water that's impure, right? And you can't wring it out. So don't get the bandage wet, okay? Or you have another halacha, a revius of water. All of these laws of purity of Netilat Yadayim are d'Rabbanan. There's a shear of water called a revius. Let's say for Chazit, it's about 120 cc's. For Chaimon says it's like 80 cc's. A revius of water is never tameh. And that's like a halacha. It's like all the other shiurim, the halacha Moshe Sinai, and the times of Beit HaMikdash, when you had things that you had to toivel to make them tahor, so you could use them for your truma food. A revius of water, of rainwater in the ground, you could toivel a very tiny thing in it. The mikvahs we use these days for people have about 1,000 liters of water, give or take. But the revius of rainwater, if you have a sewing needle, all right, and it became tameh, and you have to toivel it. You need a tahor sewing needle. You toivel in a little puddle. There's a revius of water in it. A revius of water is not tameh. Pour a revius of water on your hand, and then your bandage is fine because the water won't be tameh in the bandage. And most of us, I think, do use a revius of water. Now we can learn the Mishnah Brura about this. Then we'll see the Piskei Tshuva. Okay. So you have a person has a bandage on their hand. So go back to here. Samach Zayin. Okay. Oh, where's my pointer? Okay. Ratia. Dailo. Mayashan Yachal Asir Machmas Ke'ev. Ideally, you can't take the bandage off. Your hand hurts, or the doctor told you don't take it off. Okay? So if you can't take it off, you can't. This isn't like a partial Netilat Yadayim. You might think you can't just wash half your hand, you have to wash all of your hand. If there's a bandage that you can't take off, that's not a problem. It's like that part of the hand is just gone. We're not paying attention to it. We ignore it. What do? You wash the rest of your hand. This is a famous halacha. You have bandages on both your hands. You can't do Netilat Yadayim. And why do? Just don't touch the bread. Wrap your hands in a napkin and handle the bread through the napkin. If you can't, you can't. It's not l'chatchila, but this is not a l'chatchila situation. Okay? You can wrap both your hands in a napkin. Shlei gaber atiyah. Don't let the water touch the atiyah, because the water will become tameh. All right. And okay. Now, Katva Achwani has one last point. Let's say it's not a serious, it's like a Band-Aid. You didn't want to take the Band-Aid off. The Band-Aid came off while you were eating. You have to do Netilat Yadayim again. So that's Band-Aids and bandages. And it's an important halacha which I want to explain it because it happens. And it's something that I think it's good to just have a good grasp of the subject. Here, this is called Piskei Teshuvot. It's an anthology. All right. He's going to make a summary of the halachot of how to do Netilat Yadayim if there's a bandage on your hand, because it's very common. And with other, besides Mishnah Berurah, I can break this idea of the bandages on the hand to three situations. Aleph. You have a cut on your hand, and you were keeping it in a Band-Aid, because you take the Band-Aid off, the cut is exposed and it hurts. Oh, and it's both up. Or you can't take the bandage off because it's your hand is in a cast, like my son on Erev Pesach. Oh, the doctor said, no, you have a bad cut, keep the bandage on, keep the ointment there because you might get an infection, Chalila. You're always keeping that wound covered. Sometimes you have to change the bandage because it gets dirty, or you have to put more ointment on it. Otherwise, you're always keeping it covered. Okay? This is not a chatzitza. It's not a chatzitza, but you want it there. Even if it covers most of your hand and your fingers, still, it's not an issue. And just like take the advice of Mishnah Berurah, pour a complete revius over the hand and one pour. Okay? And you don't have to pour water on the bandage at all. You don't have to get, you don't do Netilat Yadayim for the bandage. If it gets wet, it's okay. But we are concerned with aesthetics of eating. So if the bandage is dirty and you can't change it, then just wrap it up in a clean piece of cloth. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. We shouldn't eat with a dirty bandage, besides the medical issues. It's an aesthetic issue. So you have, like, let's say, a gauze pad with ointment on top of the cut, and there's like, they wrap another piece of gauze over it to keep the gauze pad in place. Okay? So if it's possible, remove the outer gauze wrapping and leave the gauze pad that's on top of the wounded spot, if it doesn't hurt, if it's not a problem. Okay? He says you have to, if it doesn't hurt to do that. Okay. A lot of times, we don't want bandages to get wet, because as long as it's dry, it's a good barrier against bacteria. But if it gets wet, then it can lead to a further infection. Doctors say keep it dry. Keep it dry. There's actually a difficult, and you can't keep the doctors say keep the bandage dry. Or you have some other skin disorder that it's not supposed to get wet. And what do? Well, you do what we saw in the Mishnah Berurah. So if you can't get your hand wet, the doctor doesn't want the bandage, to have any chance of getting wet, then just wrap your hand in a piece of cloth and eat with that. And you only wash the other hand. Still the bracha is in the plural. Okay? Even though you're only washing one hand, the text of the bracha is in the plural. It's on the that's the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to wash Netilat Yadayim. If Chalila, you have injuries on two hands, So you can't do Netilat Yadayim at all. So then you just wrap up both hands in a napkin, and you're not going to do Netilat Yadayim, and you're not going to make a bracha on Netilat Yadayim. Next. You have a Band-Aid, and you have a cut on your finger. You can take the Band-Aid off. It's not the end of the world. If that's the situation, if it's not necessary to keep the little cut covered and it doesn't hurt to remove it, then they can't do Netilat Yadayim with the Band-Aid on your finger. Even if you can use more than a revius and you can pour it onto the Band-Aid, it's a chatzitza. You can't do this. Because you're afraid, since it's not a problem to remove the Band-Aid, we're afraid that while you're eating, you will remove the Band-Aid, and you're eating with your finger that didn't have Netilat Yadayim. So if you can't remove it, don't remove it. The doctor says keep it dry, and just cover it, wash. If you can't get, if the doctor says don't get your hand wet at all, then that hand you just wrap up with a napkin, and you won't handle the food with it. But if you can remove the Band-Aid, and it doesn't hurt to remove the Band-Aid, then you have to remove the Band-Aid from the Netilat Yadayim. And his third category, okay. Okay, so you got a Band-Aid on your finger, and it hurts to take it off. You don't want to take the Band-Aid off. It's really, really stuck. And you have no plans to take it off in the near future. You'll wait till the glue just weakens. Okay? Don't This is a rule of chatzitza. It has to be something that you're makbid on, something that you pay attention to, right? And that's hard to define. It's like the ring, a wedding ring, or it's something that you really take care of. So a wedding ring, you have to take off because that's a chatzitza, because it's something that you pay attention to. But you got this Band-Aid on your finger, and it's stuck on, and it's really you don't care about it. You just wait for it to fall off by itself. Okay? So since it occupies not less than 50% of the surface area of your finger, right? It's a small Band-Aid. Then even if it wouldn't hurt, there's nothing that it hurts you. It's just a nuisance to remove it, and you don't care about it. So you're gonna leave it alone. That's not a chatzitza. You tell you that use more than a revit of water, pour it on the Band-Aid. But once the adhesive wears that off, and it's easy to peel the Band-Aid off, then you have to peel the Band-Aid off. But otherwise, just ignore it. Pour the water over it. It's not a chatzitza. You're good. That's the rules of chatzitza. Any questions?
Yeah. Only wedding ring is okay. If you can't take it off, then you can just leave it.
That's an issue. Yeah, if you can't take it off, then you can't. Yeah, I've heard of things like that. Like if their fingers swell up. If you can't take it off, then you can. Yeah. What else are you going to do? So just pour the revius of water over it, and it's there.
Yeah.
I also have a question.
So please.
Can you use a plastic bag on your hand instead of a napkin?
Yeah. It says, I guess the hand shouldn't contact the bread.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So that's that. We spoke about the bracha. We spoke about Rav Amnon. That used to be other brachos. And Rav Amnon said, no, it's on the Tilat Yadayim. And we saw Rabbeinu Bachai explains it. It has a mystical significance that we have 10 fingers. We'll raise up our hands to Hashem. Hashem should send his brachos down to us through these 10 fingers. So that's that. So thank you for your time. See you next week, Melina Eder. B'ezras Hashem, we should have a good month. It's Rosh Chodesh. We should be zochet to the Geula. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.